Welcome everybody to the Big Dudes in the Trenches. Our conference preview series is underway. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go listen to last episode where I introduced the concept to you. But if you're familiar with how, conferences work in Division I college football, this won't be too foreign to you. We're going through every single conference in Division I, from the FBS to the FCS. Last episode was Conference USA and a couple of the small independent schools. This episode, we will be talking about the Mid-America Conference, the MAC, as it is affectionately known. Looking very, very much so forward to this.
Getting ready for some Wednesday night maction.
Some Tuesday night maction.
They do not do Tuesdays. That is a misconception, my friend. They do Thursdays and Wednesdays. Tuesdays are the purview of Conference USA. That is... We have football every night of the week if you want it. The MAC is not the sole provider of midweek college football, but they're
the number one provider of midweek football.
They're the pioneers of the concept
since 1946.
Yes.
Shit.
So we talked about this. We talked about this with Conference USA as well. Conference realignment certainly did not hit the MAC anywhere near as hard as anyone in the country, but it very well could have reshaped this conference. Even going into this very season, there was a point in time it looked like Western Kentucky and Middle Tennessee State were both going to jump ship from Conference USA to join the MAC. That ended up falling through. Unfortunately, that would have made for some very interesting developments for the MAC. Oh my gosh.
Could you imagine the MAC with those two teams added?
Adding the Nashville market to the Mid-America Conference. Oh, man.
Would have made
too much. Love it.
I would have very much enjoyed that on a personal level. At this point, I will say the two teams I can think that would make sense as potential additions, as you know, I'm sure conference realignment is going to stay on everybody's mind for the next, 20 years when all the dust finally settles. It could potentially make sense for two of the independents we talked about last episode. UConn and UMass could make some sense for this conference if they come together at the same time. Like, they couldn't come separate from each other, but if they both join the MAC at the same time, could be some travel partner relationship there and help defray some of that cost, like what USC and UCLA did when they joined the Big Ten together. So there is a thought there, but I don't even know if that makes complete sense. I think at this point, the MAC's probably going to stay how they are.
I was going to say, and then you were talking about the Nashville market. Adding the Boston market with those two teams is not a bad option either.
Right.
I really want a rotisserie chicken now. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Maybe a Nashville.
There you go. You got
market.
it. You got there.
I was trying to relate it to Nashville again, too. So if you get a Nashville hot rotisserie chicken,
there we go.
Be something.
We're in business now.
That sounds artery clogging and painful in a lot of ways.
So fantastic. I don't know what you're complaining about.
Sounds perfect. Sounds ideal. That's my idea of a great Saturday night.
Unfortunately, not a fun Sunday morning on the bowl, but you know.
Or maybe it is. Maybe you're a glutton for punishment.
maybe a great Wednesday night. A great MAC football game and Nashville hot rotisserie chicken.
I love how we're
maybe some good Nashville hot Boston market rotisserie chicken and some MAC and cheese. Let's go. Start off with Akron.
Oh, some Macron.
Wow. All right. We are starting with the University of Akron, the Zips, the Kangaroos, Jim, I don't know where I came up with Jim. Joe Moorhead is the head coach at Akron. He is in his second season. He looks like a smug motherfucker. Can't stand his face, but at the same time,
his eyebrows aren't level. They're not level. His eyebrow. He's giving me the rock eye. He's giving me the people's eyebrow right now.
Look, I don't usually say this often with these smaller schools in their second season with the coach, but his seat cannot be cool. It has to be warming up. That is That is horrendous.
It was not a good season necessarily. But also you have to look at the history of Akron. They have not had a good, I don't know, last 20 years, it feels
You
like.
still expect to do more than one win better than UMass. And more than one win in conference would help.
Yeah, but it's really hard to win conference games in the MAC. It's very hard to win conference games in the MAC. If you're a MAC team, you are basically equal talent to every other MAC team, unless you're Akron.
I agree, and I just want to point out that like nearly every other team, with the exception of Northern Illinois and Ohio, are right around that even mark, which is where I would expect to be.
Right. Yeah, you can usually end up in the conference championship game in the MAC at going like 8 wins. Didn't happen last year exactly, but
it
did because Toledo ended up winning their bowl game. Yeah.
So they've won the conference with 7 wins. This is exactly how this goes.
Yeah. So it's very reasonable that you can have what seems like a mediocre team at winning your conference. At the same time, that means it's hard to break into that if you're not already there. I do think this is a good shot to do so. If you recognize the name Joe Moorhead, it's probably because of his time as a coordinator for both Penn State and Oregon at different stops. Comes back to the Midwest, now the head coach at Akron, and has a quarterback who's very fun in DJ Irons. Brings in a transfer, Nate Thompson, at safety, who might project as a potential all-conference safety by the end of this transfer out of Duke. There is some reason to be excited for Akron. They need a big step up to be really in the conversation in the MAC, though.
And that's really what I'm. Go ahead, Bug.
They need a big step up, but like you said, every game in the MAC is hard to win. They really weren't out of too many conference games. There's about 3 or 4 that they absolutely had no shot of getting. But I did not think they were going to beat Northern Illinois the way they did, and they messed them up. They're right there with Buffalo. They're right there with Eastern Michigan. They got destroyed out. Where they really need to improve is how they stack up to the rest of the country, because they had a tough non-conference schedule. Don't get me wrong, but they got embarrassed by Michigan State, embarrassed by Tennessee. Liberty, though, that was a pretty good game for them. This team, whereas UMass 1 win horrible, you would think 2 win Akron equally horrible. No, they're right there. I'm hopeful that a second-year head coach will be able to improve and get more of those 1-score games going his direction than he did in this first year.
But you guys are saying exactly why I think his seat isn't hot, but it's not cool. Like, it's getting warmer. Is if he goes out, and again, you have the excitement this year. There's reason to be excited. He's a second-year head coach. 1-score games should swing his way a little bit more this year. Agreed. But now if he goes out and puts up a 1-7 conference record again, you need to move on. You have to cut your losses at that point.
Right. No coach is going to stick around going 2-10 forever. But we're just saying that we don't expect that to necessarily happen. So
no, and that's fair.
At the same time, probably not going to be one of the top teams in the conference either. So we'll see. Next up is the Bowling Green Falcons. Scott Loeffler is their head coach with 1 T. I can't stand his first name. It grosses me out, but it is Scott with 1 T.
I'm glad you spell checked me, because I did not notice that. Yeah. And I definitely had him with two T's in there.
Yeah, it's because that's the correct way to spell Scott, is with 2 T's. Yeah. And Scott Loeffler does not spell it that way. Because
is it his fault or is it his parents' fault?
It's both.
Both are fault. At this point, he could have changed his name.
You know how much more ass that is?
He could just start going by Scott with 2 T's. Just put that anyway. People wouldn't even question it.
Just put the quotes around the second T.
If his
I love
nickname
when
was T, that would be crazy.
I love when we get these headshots from like ESPN or the schools, and you can tell which players are transfers because they're different.
Right. But also, you might very well recognize Connor Bazelak from his time at Missouri. Then he transferred to Indiana last year. Indiana had an awful season and started over again, basically. So they moved on from Connor Bazelak as well. And now he's at Bowling Green, where he will hope to resurrect what started off as a pretty promising career at Missouri. His freshman and sophomore seasons looked pretty good. Then just, I don't know what happened exactly. But it
At what point
Missouri
does he
sucks.
legitimately,
I was gonna say, at
well,
what
that's
point does
true.
he start to think it's him?
But
Goes to Missouri, they go downhill. Goes to Indiana, they go downhill.
Well,
yeah,
in
I don't.
fairness, Indiana had only had like 2 seasons being up, so it's not like they fell that far.
Yeah, I'm not actually. I want it known. I'm not actually blaming him. I'm making a bad joke as I do.
Well, and also you have to consider that Indiana's quarterback, when they had that one good season, is now a potential Heisman candidate at the University of Washington. So it's tough. You have to be a potential Heisman candidate in your future in order to be good in Indiana. That's
Yeah, it's fair.
uh,
I think this is the place for him to do it, though. This is the place for him to do it.
Yeah.
Bowling Green
Yep.
has the potential to be a high-powered passing offense, and if you want to sling the ball around and show what you can do, this is the place to do it. So this might be exactly what he needs to resurrect his career. I do hope that if he does, he stays at Bowling Green, doesn't transfer for a third time. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
He's got to be
If
running out of
you'll,
eligibility.
yeah, I think this will be his last season anywhere, actually. But we've also seen a player get an eighth year of eligibility.
Oh
So
my god! I had 2 college careers.
Carl Brooks is no longer here on this defensive line. He was drafted by the Green Bay Packers. But Anthony Hawkins is a very adequate nose tackle, more than adequate. He's pretty dang good in his own right. And I'm still looking at this defensive front as a strength for them, even without Carl Brooks, who felt like the definitive reason that Bowling Green took a step up last year. But that probably just means you didn't watch enough Bowling Green Falcons games. What are y'all doing? Bowling Green is where it's at.
I have to ask this because I recognize the last name. I just can't place his brother. Oladokun has a brother in the NFL, doesn't he?
Yeah, Oladokun had there was an Oladokun who was a quarterback at one of the Dakota states, and he has gotten a shot at the NFL, but I don't even know if he's rostered at the moment.
Chris Oladokun was last seen in the Chiefs organization.
Yeah.
It looks like he's still active. He was drafted in the 7th round out of Pittsburgh.
Out of Pittsburgh.
Like I said, I know
2
that's
years
one of the ones
ago.
that like I recognize the name and I just don't know why. It happens to me often because I can never remember names.
Right. Bowling Green did go to a bowl game last year. That's probably about the range to expect them to be this year as well. I don't really expect them to be competing for the conference title, but we've already talked about the MAC is extremely unpredictable and everybody's about the same. So if they win 1 or 2 games they're not supposed to, they'll be all of a sudden now conference champions. Oh my gosh.
He was drafted by Pittsburgh 2 years ago and has been on
Okay.
the practice squad for the Steelers and then last year for the Chiefs. There you go.
Okay. I was going to say, he did not go to Pitt. There's no fucking way.
Yeah, I was like, you literally just said he went to the San Diego, or not San Diego State, the other SDSU. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah, I was like, some ESPNs can't be that wrong.
Next up, we do have Buffalo.
I
Also made a
love
bowl
seeing-
game last year.
I love seeing when you changed at least one of the pictures on me, but you also picked a fantastic picture of this head coach.
His picture was so blurry. I had to do something else.
I'm sorry.
got
No,
an
I
action shot of him
like this one.
Maurice Linguist is a phenomenal head coach and has really felt like he stepped into Buffalo at a rough time. Lance Leopold moved on as quickly as possible, and now was
Made
left
Kansas
with.
relevant.
I know, like I don't blame Leopold. I don't blame him at all. Like he made the right move for him, but it did leave the University of Buffalo in a bad spot.
Yep.
So Maurice Linguist came in with limited time, limited resources, and has maintained a level of relevance for Buffalo that I don't think I expected. And
Not at all.
it's been impressive. They were second in the East last year, and this year they are returning our Group of Five All-America safety Marcus Fuqua. Sean Dolak was a consideration for the All-America team at linebacker, and Gabe Wallace was a consideration for the Group of Five All-America team at tackle. Like, this is a solid squad in Buffalo.
I like this team and what they're bringing to the table. They've over the past few years they've made themselves known for running backs. Ron Cook Jr. is definitely going to be another one of those top end running backs. You're bringing back, like you said, Marcus Fuqua. That's going to be fantastic for him. Sean Dolak, I haven't actually seen him play, but he looks like a linebacker that I don't want to be running against. And that's exactly how you want your linebacker headshots to be. So I'm all in.
One of those beefy white farm boys.
This ain't Nebraska.
And just
it's the Mid-America Conference, baby.
Which 100% should have Nebraska and not Buffalo in it.
Also, that right tackle with those mutton chops going right there, I'm in.
Right.
I'm in. New favorite tackle.
Got his sleeves rolled for the team pictures.
Yeah,
and
as a lineman does. Like, that's how that goes.
So Buffalo potentially in that conversation for the MAC championship, like we said already, win one or two games that nobody expected you to, and all of a sudden you're crowned champions of the conference, just because that's what the MAC is.
Yep.
That's how it goes.
Kent State, I don't expect that. Being bowl eligible for Kent State would be a step up, mostly because of their non-conference schedules. They've really taken the route of let's make as much money as possible from buyout games. But Kenny Burns steps in his first season at head coach here and might potentially look to change that. Their head coach previously left for a coordinator job at Colorado under Deion Sanders. Kenny Burns comes in as former running backs coach for Minnesota. And if you'll remember anything about Minnesota from the last 5 years, it's that they've had some damn good running backs. So some potential here, a little bit of a change of pace at head coach for Kent State. And I am looking out for this run game. I don't know what they have going on at quarterback necessarily, but Xavier Williams and Kai Thomas both have potential to be up there leading the conference in rushing yards, and they're both in the same running back room behind a center that I believe in, Nolan Rumler, as well.
Originally a Michigan commit, wasn't he?
I think you're right now that you say that. I'd forgotten about that.
So let me explain this, because this is the one that I had texted you guys and said, hey, we need to keep this picture because this is the epitome of an offensive lineman. This is actually the high school All-America game, and everything I was seeing was that he had committed to Michigan. But that's absolutely huge. You've got that. I don't know what star rating he was. I'd have to look it up. But you have the talent that got him an offer at a Power 5 top-end school. This offense is scary with their two running backs this year. It's going to be insane.
Power 5, I agree with. Top end is debatable.
I'm not going to go there because I don't want to hurt you.
I know.
I also want to point out that the cameraman definitely forgot to tell Kenny Burns the flash was on.
Yeah.
Did him no favors.
Oh man, that's rough.
You talk about their non-conference schedule. I mean, or they're likely going to go 2-2. I think that game against Fresno,
sometimes I do.
That Fresno State game is going to be a very good game, and really going to be their first real litmus test of how they're going to do in the MAC season. I don't expect them to do anything great against UCF. I could be surprised. UCF was not great last year. I don't expect them to do anything great against Arkansas. I will say that 100%. And then playing Woo Pig, and then playing a directional school out of Connecticut. I didn't realize Connecticut was big enough to have a directional school.
Central Connecticut.
Central Connecticut State University. I mean, this is they cover all the bases of directional schools. And then playing Fresno State. I mean, they have a potential to go 2-2 or 1-3. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, and that Fresno State game really is what's going to set them up best for the season.
So, while I agree, I'm just thinking about this. I'm sorry, my mind just went the wrong way with this. Is Central really a direction?
Yes.
Moving on.
The best team name is Miami.
That takes us to Miami of Ohio, the elder Miami, and also the one that was actually named for the Miami tribe because Miami, Florida was named later after they got kicked out of their actual land, which was originally in what we now call Ohio. So fuck the Hurricanes.
And just so there's, full total confusion, they opened their season in Coral Gables, Florida, against Miami.
We will get there.
Is this fucking Blaine Gabbert's brother?
Yes.
It is Blaine Gabbert's brother. Brett Gabbert is the quarterback for Miami. He has been starting quarterback there for a little while now and has been very good. One of the best quarterbacks in the MAC. Chuck Martin is also returning for his 10th season. Miami of Ohio is one of those teams that feels like they compete for a MAC championship every couple of years. This very well might be one of those years. I would not at all be surprised if they're in that conversation at least. But unfortunately for them, the MAC still does have divisions. And in that East, you're also up against Buffalo and Ohio and Bowling Green and Akron and Kent State. But I don't expect them to factor into the title conversation as much as those other teams. Miami is right in that mix in that top 4 in their division, though. And one game could swing that division.
Yep.
As we've already kind of talked about, the MAC's all over the place. Having a solidified starting quarterback with experience like Brett Gabbert has and a defense that competes with anybody in the MAC, I would say you're going to be in that conversation.
Absolutely.
I will say, looking at their schedule, Miami, Massachusetts, Cincinnati, and Delaware State to open the season. I mean, we just talked about Kent State having schedule. Well, Kent State having the potential to go 2-2 in non-conference. I think you can almost, write in 2-2 for non-conference for Miami, which puts them in a great spot going into the MAC schedule because they're going to face good competition with Miami and Cincinnati, and they're going to get some easy gimmies against UMass and Delaware State. This is honestly, in my opinion, the ideal non-conference schedule for any of these MAC teams.
No, it's the best way to set it up, too.
Absolutely.
And now
that takes us to the champion of the East last year and with the best regular season record in the MAC, the University of Ohio.
The coaches poll favorite to win the MAC this season.
Yes, they were the favorite to win the MAC last year as well, I believe, and they did get the best regular season record before they lost in the championship game to Toledo. Tim Albin is back. They had a very long-standing head coach who used to be the head coach in Nebraska. Does anyone remember the name of the former Ohio and Nebraska head coach? Frank Solich. It's fine.
At least it's not who I was thinking of.
Yeah. Tim Albin stepped up after Frank Solich retired, and Tim Albin has done a great job of maintaining the success and even building on it to an extent. Curtis Rourke is the quarterback here. You may recognize the name Rourke. There is a Rourke, a little bit older. His brother is a quarterback for the CFL, and the elder Rourke won a Grey Cup. The last Grey Cup we actually talked about on this channel. The Alouettes and the Argonauts.
Yep.
I gotta say, Parker Titsworth is probably my favorite name ever.
I was just gonna say, definitely my favorite player on this team.
I couldn't leave that alone too much longer. And you
You
got
couldn't.
Corey Cox, Titsworth, and Cox. I mean, they're my favorite to win the MAC too. Just for that, that's my analysis.
I did also want to talk about Sam Wiggles, who is potentially one of the best wide receivers in all of the Group of Five. He was like my third or fourth.
He goes to the Patriots
outside of the
100%.
all Group of Five All America team. Yeah, I would not at all be surprised if he gets drafted in the mid rounds and probably to the Patriots. Sam Wiggles was a walk on at Ohio State and couldn't make the starting roster for obvious reasons. At Ohio State, everybody's getting drafted in the first round. Sam Wiggles isn't exactly a first round guy, but he is a baller. And last year definitely proved that at Ohio. He went off and should be the main target for Ohio this year as well. I expect big things out of Rourke to Wiggles.
That's taking the ball from Titsworth's crotch. I got to say, Ohio's in a fantastic spot where they're just right there. They're one of the best teams in the MAC consistently. And Ohio State has too many 5 stars on their team, and they've got too many 4 stars. And you're like, hey, you can probably win a conference championship here, which bodes well for your prospects of going on further. I'm honestly surprised that they don't have more Ohio State. I don't know the way to say it. Not dropouts, kickbacks, maybe. Maybe that's the word I'm looking for.
Transfers is probably the word you're looking for.
Yeah, transfers.
Yeah, but
you also have to consider easy. Ohio. Ohio is one of like 6 teams in the MAC in the state of Ohio.
Yeah, this is the true Ohio Valley.
But they're the best. They're the best. Even though Toledo won last year, right?
Bowling Green, Akron, Kent State, Ohio. Miami, Ohio.
You've really got 2 choices though. It's either Toledo or Ohio.
It really
in the past 2 years, I agree with you, but in the history of the MAC conference, anybody can win at any time.
Like, it bugs me that Bowling Green is in Ohio and not Bowling Green, Kentucky. I know it's like right over the border, but that really annoys me.
It's not right over the border. Bowling Green, Ohio is very far north.
Very far north.
Like, their main rival is Toledo because of how close they are. And Bowling Green, Kentucky has a college, thank you very much, that is Western Kentucky. The Hilltoppers are going to dominate the Conference USA.
Why couldn't that be something Ohio, directional Ohio? We have this. We can solve this.
Fuck you. No, Ohio.
Well,
Ohio has to be among, if not the favorite for this conference this year, even though it is as unpredictable as it is. They just have a great roster.
Yeah, and we pointed out the last couple non-conference schedules, and this one is weaker than most. But it's still going to be a lot of very good games. San Diego State, LIU, which that's the easy win of their non-conference schedule. FAU, and then against Iowa State at home. Mm-hmm. That's huge for them. They've got 1 win. The other 3 are really toss-up. It's going to be very exciting to see if they can kind of live up to that preseason hype that they're getting already from pretty much everyone, including us.
Yep.
With that said, gentlemen, I got to step out and take a piss. So why don't we start talking about Ball State while I'm sizzling bacon in the toilet here.
Pee is stored in the balls.
It's like a transfer from Kent State.
Yeah. Ball State is named for, if you are a canning enthusiast, the Mason Jars Ball. That's the same person. Started both that company and this university in Indiana. I didn't know that until relatively recently, so I thought it'd be worth sharing. That's a fun fact. Just the Ball Jar Company also decided to start a university. Okay. That's where we're at.
Tell me you're bored without telling me you're bored.
That is not boredom. That is dedicated journalism research.
No, I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about the dude who did this. I'm going to make jars. I'm bored now. I'm going to make a university.
Head coach Mike New is back for his 8th season at Ball State.
Not very new.
Mark. Wow, I keep fucking up these head coaches' names this episode.
Mike knew.
Mike. Been around a while. Should be his new last name. That's what I was trying to say, and I fucked it up. Oh my gosh! All right. Yeah, they do bring in a transfer at running back, Marquez Cooper, and their offensive line, honorary big dude Brady Hunt's probably the best tight end in the conference, but that left tackle is really good too. I don't have any issues with this offensive line whatsoever. Tavion Woodard is probably my favorite defensive player on this
He
team.
looks like he's 6'4" and 275.
He does look like that, doesn't he? He's a scary fella. If you're a quarterback, that is.
Yep. Oh, Bug's back.
And we're going to have a guest star here in a minute that's currently eating some bugs. We'll see.
Exciting. But unless you have anything to add to Ball State, we're honestly kind of done with Ball State. I will say, I guess I don't expect them to compete for the conference title. This is another team that it's like bowl eligibility would be fantastic.
This is a team that has made a living out of hovering at that just under 500 mark. You're going to your 8th season with the same head coach who is sitting at a 33-48 overall record. You're setting your expectations realistically here. You're looking at a 4 to 5 win season. Like you said, maybe bowl eligibility might be the reach goal, but we'll see.
And even with that said, they have competed for a conference title in the past couple of years. So it's like,
welcome to the MAC.
Starting off the season with back-to-back SEC opponents on the road is fucking ballsy, especially one of them's Georgia.
No, you got to. I mean, dude, the amount of money that's paying for their entire recruitment for 2024
and probably 2025. Let's be real.
Yeah.
More power to them.
Ball State.
Family weekends against Indiana State because their families are going to need to be there to console them after the asset beating that they take against Georgia.
This is one of those games, though, where Kentucky's probably going to blow it, and it's going to be, oh my gosh, what the fuck's happening? And then
it's exactly what this is.
This is what happens when they lose Will Levis. Oh my god!
And then Kentucky's going to still win like 9-10 games somehow, and
they're going to win 11.
4-6.
They're going to win 11 games. They're going to go to the SEC championship with their one loss being Ball State.
Stop.
I wasn't trying to go that far.
Let's talk about the chips.
Oh man.
Directional Michigan won.
Central Michigan is head coached by Jim McElwain, who people may recognize from his stints at Colorado State and Florida. He was head coach for the Gators for a time before getting fired because he sucked ass.
Not a long time.
Or a good time.
It was for him. He was making money, and then
it was a time, though. It counts as a time. Yeah, Central Michigan. They started off the Jim McElwain era with a couple of really solid teams. It was like, wow, maybe he can coach football. That's a thing that's possible. Didn't know for sure still. And then last year, 4-8. And I again don't have a ton of confidence in them to compete for a MAC championship.
So for me, Central Michigan is one of those teams that their season almost entirely rides on that one dude that should be at a different school, but is at Central Michigan for some unknown reason.
Yeah.
I.e. the Antonio Browns are Central Michigan alumni, right? So they usually have that one standout.
Eric Fisher.
Yeah, or the Eric Fishers. You usually have that one standout player, and I'm with you. I don't think they have it this year, so I don't exactly know what they're going to do.
That is a lizard.
Dragon.
That is not a Chippewa.
I was wondering why you got really confused and stopped talking. I thought you were trying to say I had shitty analysis, and then we're going to continue on.
Nope.
Now I understand.
Yep. That is a creature on Bug's shoulder, eating bugs, but
That
not
is
our big bug.
Dorito. Say hi to everybody, Dorito. Hello.
Nice.
She's very tiny now. They've got an interesting non-conference schedule too. They've got two. Again, this seems to be kind of the standard for the MAC this year. They've got two very tough non-conference games on the road at Notre Dame and Michigan State, and then they've got two that are probably a win, and then one that's going to be a little interesting because South Alabama has been on the rise the past couple of years after being a complete joke in the very recent history here.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued to see how they do. Again, this is another one you can pencil in 1 and 2, and then you got the toss up at South Alabama. Beautiful new stadium there, by the way. Can we talk about Hancock Whitney Stadium for a second? I know we're going to talk about South Alabama later, but beautiful new stadium
Yeah,
there.
I recommend we talk about that stadium later too when we talk about South Alabama. Honestly,
Beautiful,
That's
just beautiful.
what I think. Central Michigan, good. Best of luck to you. That's where we're at.
That's kind of been the standard. Here's the biggest thing is their Central Michigan. Recently, last year kind of being an outlier, they've been the central, the middle team of the three directional Michigan schools. I think when you look at that little rivalry compared to the rest of the MAC, they went 4-8 last year. Eastern actually won instead of Western, won the Battle of Michigan.
Right, which is
I don't
crazy.
Yeah, I don't see that happening again because I don't have faith in Eastern Michigan, and a lot of that's because they haven't been doing it that long. Then again, maybe Jim
not good.
Yeah, maybe Jim McElwain's showing that he's still Jim McElwain, and the first few years were outliers.
Well, let's go ahead and jump to Eastern Michigan here because the job
too.
Chris Creighton has done is out of this world, man. They were the UMass of the FBS for a good 25 years. And then Chris Creighton came in and slowly built this program into something worth watching and got them to their first bowl game ever under Chris Creighton's watch. And now they've been to a couple, and 9-4 last year. They were
with a win.
If they had beaten Toledo, they would have been in the conference championship game. That is wild. One game difference, and they would have been competing for the crown of the MAC. That's as unreal for the Eagles here. Chris Creighton is, of course, back. They're never going to let him go. As long as he wants to coach here, he will be coaching here. And actually, every season above 500 automatically adds a year to his contract. That is in his contract.
Oh, he's got one of those contracts, huh?
Oh, yeah. He's here as long as he wants to be if he keeps winning. And like you were saying, Bug, where it's like Ball State, Central Michigan, you need one of those guys to just stand out. I really think Brian Dooley at right tackle is one of the better right tackles in the entire country. And I don't think he made our Group of 5 All-America team, but damn it, he was close. And that does nothing but help your run game. And if you can run the ball effectively, you have a shot in the MAC.
And here's what I'm looking at too is, if I'm not mistaken, most of this team is returning. So they're coming off of a 9-4 season. They did not lose a lot to senior graduations. They naturally don't have a lot leave for the draft. This team is dangerous this year.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I would not at all be surprised if they end up as the best of the directional Michigans again. I know you just said you would be, Bug. What's your take on this?
Here's the problem. I still think the PJ Fleck era was 3 years ago, 2-3 years ago at Western Michigan, and that's not the case.
No.
Yeah.
And they really, Tim Lester maintained for a little bit and then just slowly started falling more and more and more. So
faded. Yep.
Yeah. So this is the problem. Like I remember the glory days of Western Michigan, and yeah, you're right. It's not actually the case. Eastern has been on the rise and should be respected. I just want Western. Yeah, absolutely. I just want Western Michigan to be the top dog again.
That's your friendship showing through. I approve.
It is a little bit of my friendship showing through here. Yeah, second, probably first. Let's be real. They're probably going to win the battle for Michigan.
I love
Their
how Central
non-conference
Michigan's
schedule.
not really even in that conversation.
No, they're not.
They're not.
They've never. I don't know if they've ever really been the team to do it either. Their non-conference schedule this year is interesting. They've got a non-conference schedule. I'd put them at 3-1. Howard, at Minnesota, Massachusetts, and then at Jacksonville State. Jacksonville State's going to be a test for Avi. I already talked about Jacksonville State earlier in the live episode. But I'm curious to see how this plays out for him. I really am.
Yeah, starting potentially 3-1 in non-conference does wonders for bowl chances. Only needing 3 wins in conference, and they've shown they're able to do that, and do that convincingly. So I would not at all be surprised if they're up there with Toledo for a West title again, same as last year. But it is also the MAC, and anything can happen because it's the MAC. They might suck. It's possible. Who knows?
Doug, oh my God, sorry. I'm going back and I'm looking at UMass's schedule because something was intriguing to me. Because you said that they should join the MAC, and well, it looks like they're trying to make an attempt. They play 3 MAC teams alone this year.
Well, they used to be in the MAC, so they have relationships still.
But the reason I said, "Oh my God," is they're going down to Auburn in week 2 or week 1.
We've
that
already talked
scares
about
me.
UMass. That's a whole different episode now.
I'm sorry, it scared me. I am scared.
Let's jump
things
to
are about to happen in Auburn, Alabama. Okay.
Let's jump to Northern Illinois here, who had a very down season last year. But honestly, this is another team I would not at all be surprised if they end up competing for the West in the MAC.
They were competing for the West 2 years ago and just barely missed going to the conference championship game. I mean, you talk about up and down and unpredictable. Northern Illinois is the epitome of this. Former stomping grounds of head coach Jerry Kill, who we talked about earlier on the live episode as well.
Yeah. Thomas Hammock is back for his 5th season. What a name. He looks like a guy who's a big fan of relaxing. Don't blame him.
Rocky, big hammock.
That's where I was at.
Rocky Lombardi is the quarterback here. He used to be a quarterback for Michigan State.
Yep.
I believe this is his either 2nd or 3rd season at Northern Illinois. Feels like he's been at Northern Illinois a while now. But either way, last year was a down year for the program. Rocky Lombardi certainly had a hand in that as well, unfortunately. I do expect better things out of him, and I really do think he has a good shot at making this team a competitor. Nolan Potter is a name you may recognize from our Group of 5 All-America team. Nolan Potter is, in my opinion, the best right tackle in this conference. As much as I talked up Brian Dooley out of Eastern Michigan, Nolan Potter is even better. And that is a great place to start, is being phenomenal on the offensive line somewhere. You'll take it.
See, but I'd like Brian Dooley a little bit more because if I'm not mistaken, he had his sleeves rolled as you should. As an offensive tackle, and Nolan Potter doesn't. So clearly,
actually, in his official team picture, Brian Dooley's in a suit and tie.
Good.
Nolan Potter is in his jersey here, looking schlumpy.
They've got an interesting non-conference schedule as well. Here's why I say interesting. This could go 4-0, and it could go 0-4. It is really all over the place for them. At Boston College, at home against SIU, at Nebraska, and at home against Tulsa. I mean, all 4 of those teams are question marks in a lot of different regards. And Northern Illinois themselves is a question mark in a lot of different regards.
That is, you're not wrong. You never know what you're going to get with Boston College. You never know what you're going to get with Nebraska. And you put Northern Illinois, who you never know what you're going to get with on the road in those games. And I'm with you. I have no idea how to predict those games. It's not possible.
Yeah, I kind of have faith in NIU, and am concerned that it goes back to when they were really good. Like they ended up as the number 12 team in the country one week, I think in like 2010 ish.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's
I
been a
remember that.
while, but at the same time, I have fond memories of Northern Illinois being great, and I want that to happen again. This feels like a roster that could make a push for the MAC championship, though, legitimately. And
I think so. I don't.
there's a scenario where they have the same disappointing season, but I also think there is a very real scenario they end up in that conference championship game.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna sit here and act like I know exactly what happened last year, but it definitely was a little bit of a surprise to me that they only went 3-9.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't. It's just there's so much that doesn't make sense here. I mean, they lost to Vanderbilt,
right.
and I
Who
feel like that
loses to
really
Vanderbilt?
NIU, and I feel like that's really what just put their season on a downward
At the
trajectory
same
from there.
time, Vanderbilt had 5 wins last year. Like they were Vanderbilt's
I
Clark
feel like
Lee is
losing to
doing wonders.
Vanderbilt put them. I feel like losing to Vanderbilt put them on a downward trajectory for the rest of the season.
That's fair.
It's possible.
All right,
But let's jump to our conference champions from last season.
and say goodbye to
As
Dorito while I go put her up.
goodbye,
Bye,
Dorito.
Dorito.
And hi, Jason Candle, the 9th-year head coach for the Toledo Rockets. Toledo is such an exciting team to watch. DeQuan Finn it feels like a talent that no MAC school deserves, but it's the one that they need right now.
Toledo is the epitome of the MAC, though. They are
Right?
built to win and play in the MAC,
Yep.
and that's about it.
Yeah. It's pretty true.
Like-
To Bug's point, we do have an Ohio State transfer at linebacker, Dallas Gant. Yeah, he couldn't make the field consistently for the Buckeyes, but man, is he one of the leaders of this Toledo defense. Quinion Mitchell at corner is doing wonderful things for the school
Also
as
from
well.
the All-America team.
Also from our Group of 5 All-Americas team. Yes, sir. I expect this offense to run through DeQuan Finn. At the same time, I do like Jaquez Stewart at running back, and that interior of the offensive line, I don't have any questions about either. So this is a team. It is next to impossible to repeat in the MAC. They're returning so many guys, though. It feels like it'd be stupid not to include them in the group that's at least contenders for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is I gotta say too, as far as their prospects outside of the MAC, bowl eligibility and such, they went 4-0 last year. I think they could do it again this year. And with only three of those games before the conference season, they then have a tune-up against UMass in week 6. There we go. They're going to be in a good position to repeat in the MAC, and I think better than anybody else. And we talk about consistently how it's always so wide open, and it still is, even with as good as we think Toledo is.
Right.
I think we might get a repeat conference championship game in the MAC, though, and that's almost more insane than saying they're going to win back-to-back years.
Right. That's very possible, but certainly improbable knowing the history of this conference.
Correct.
If you like parody in football, watch the MAC. You will become a very big fan very quickly.
This is why, as much as we like to make jokes about Maction because it's fun to say, this is why the MAC is fun.
Yes.
Yeah. This is why there's matches, because they're all equal level. It's like they put some sort of like level cap on the MAC and they've all maxed it out. So now they're just going back and forth with each other.
We got like 15. We've got 15 schools in Ohio taking, Ohio State dropouts.
Yes.
Drop-downs. Droppings.
Drop-downs.
Leftovers.
Ohio State droppings.
Ohio State droppings. Yeah, that works.
Did you hear saying that Dallas Gant, the leader of this Toledo defense, is a former Ohio State Buckeye?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. The last team alphabetically here, Western Michigan. Lance Taylor takes over his first season head coach here because they've been on the downturn and they couldn't maintain what PJ Fleck had going on for. He had a good run, but that's also been like 7 years ago, right? So that's a problem looking that far back in the past. And honestly, I'm not too inspired by this roster. Unfortunately, I don't think they're gonna. I don't think this team's going to be competing for a championship. At the same time, you have a first-year head coach that does feel like a big wild card, and almost anything can happen when you have that going on. So, who knows? Who
Again,
knows?
this is something we can't really predict here, but if this team is going to have one of its good runs this year, you need a player to step up and be in the spotlight early and set themselves apart. I'm with you. I don't really see that on this roster, at least looking at the surface. Week 1, we'll have a better idea, but I don't think this team is it.
Well, and week 1, I'm sorry to steal your thunder, Bug, because you've been talking about the non-conference schedules for everybody here. But week 1, they're playing St. Francis, which sounds like a layup because they're an FCS school. That was a FCS playoff team last year.
This conference schedule was very clearly, or non-conference schedule was very clearly made when PJ Fleck was there, or at the beginning of
that's possible
of their previous coaches'
how
regime.
bad is it?
It's pretty bad. After St. Francis, it gets
Syracuse,
hard.
Iowa, 2 conference games, Toledo and Ball State, and then at Starkville against Mississippi State. So this was very clearly a schedule made when this team was very, very different.
There's only one team that really scares me there, and that's Mississippi State. Like, out of the non-conference games you read.
All right. I mean, I was gonna hold them to 2 safeties.
Yeah, but I was
the only points they'll score.
I was gonna say, but I was also only gonna score like 2 field goals. Like,
I was gonna score 2 field goals. They're going to hold Western Michigan to 2 safeties. It's going to be 6-4. It's going to be gorgeous, and I was going to win.
Hold on.
And anytime you got to go to the Carrier Dome, man, like that's not a fun time for anybody.
I'm not saying
it is not the Carrier Dome now. It is the JMA Wireless Dome.
It's the Carrier Dome.
I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but that Syracuse does not scare me as much as like.
Okay, but if you're Western Michigan, you should be a little bit scared.
Yeah, but it's not Ball State versus Georgia. Like, that's.
I gotta say too.
That's where I'm
that's
at.
true. I gotta say too. This identity crisis that Western Michigan is having between are we using the Ghost Bronco? Are we using this W? This stuff's got to end.
Yeah,
they've got to figure out who they are. And as dumb as this sounds, legitimately, this was part of their fucking problem. This was a horrible logo. Go back to the Ghost Bronco permanently.
So, I'm not gonna lie.
Just take the W off your website completely. We don't want it. We don't need it. It's awful. You look like the Washington football team, who was awful.
I agree with you because this also reminds me of Wyoming, who is also scum of the earth.
Wyoming's better than Western Michigan, though.
So. I mean, you're not wrong, but that logo could equally suffice for Western or Wyoming, and you would never know the difference.
You're not wrong.
So we've talked about the non-conference games on and off for basically every team, but there are 3 in particular wanted to highlight separately here. Miami at Miami is very fun.
Miami
wins
for
obvious reasons.
Yeah, Miami wins.
Yeah,
I'm not
Miami
wrong.
will win that game.
I'm not wrong.
Iowa State is headed to Ohio. I kind of can't believe it. It's a Power 5 school at a Group 5 school.
And I love it when that happens.
And the other crazy thing to me too is like, yeah, okay, Ohio State's the only Power 5 school in Ohio.
Not anymore.
That's true.
Yeah,
but
Cincinnati.
Iowa's not exactly close to Ohio. It's not super far away. It's not like Mississippi or Mississippi State going up to Memphis, right? That's just a quick drive up the
Right.
highway in a neighboring state. This is
Yeah,
and it might be about the same amount of time. It's 2 states away, but yeah, I mean or 3 states away. My
Yeah, you have
geography's
to
bad.
go through the shitty parts of Illinois and Indiana. So
Yeah,
it-
it's amazing that Iowa State wants to make that trip.
they're probably flying. Let's be real.
I mean, I know they are, but still.
But their gear's getting there by truck driver.
I'm sorry for the truck driver, but the team will be okay. And then we talked about this game earlier on the live show in the previous episode. If you're listening via audio, Liberty at Buffalo is also very interesting to us. Put it here because it's at the MAC Stadium, not at the Conference USA Stadium. But Liberty at Buffalo is kind of a real test for both of these teams. A good litmus test for where these conferences line up too. Like, is Liberty a legitimate contender for the Conference USA title? Is Buffalo a legitimate contender for the MAC title? This game probably tells us quite a bit about both these conferences and how both these teams are going to do.
Yep.
With that, though, let's get to the fun part because we've talked about it all episode, how this is basically impossible to know. So, who's going to win the conference this year? And since we do have 2 divisions, right, and we delineated them, you notice we went alphabetical order, and then all of a sudden we're back at B after talking about Ohio.
We didn't brief that we were going to do it that way, and it threw me off. And I was like, wait, B does not come after O?
So
it does if you're in a conference with divisions. That's
I wasn't ready.
So here's what I want to do. Who do we think is going to win the East? We'll start there.
I'll take Buffalo in the East.
You're taking Buffalo?
I'll take Buffalo in the East.
Okay.
Ballsy. Bold. Be bold.
Who are you going to take, Bug? I think I know, so I'm going to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to stick with Ohio.
Yeah.
I think if there's, as much as we said Toledo has the chance to do it, I'm going to go off the wall in the West because I have to. I cannot take the repeat.
Hold up, though. You took Ohio in the East. I didn't take Ohio in the East. I'm going to take Miami.
I like it. In this is true MAC fashion. We all have different picks.
I think Miami has a shot here to win the East. Now go to the West. Who you got, Bug?
Yeah, talking through this episode, I was almost convinced to take Toledo, but then I remembered it's still the MAC, and we also talked about a team that has been up and down, and we really don't know what they're going to do this year. We really have no idea. It could be really great. It could be really bad. And so that's why I'm going with NIU.
Look, I'm going to take a team that it's not going to be a repeat from last year. I'm not going Toledo, but I'm going with the game that was a 1-score game last year that decided the West's representative in the MAC. I'm going to take Eastern.
And I guess I'll be the boring one here. I am going to take Toledo in the West.
Somebody had to.
Somebody had to.
Somebody had to.
Here's the thing. Out of both divisions, I think we, in some order, got the top 3 teams.
It feels like it, but very possibly not. It's still realistic that Ball State and Kent State end up winning the conference championship game. So,
sorry, I'm laughing because Eastern Michigan abbreviated spells EMU, and the Australians can't be emus. Therefore, we're going to go EMU for the title.
All right.
Fair enough.
That puts me in an interesting spot because as much as I enjoy the coaches poll picking Ohio, and I think they have an excellent shot at actually doing that, there's this tiny bit of bias that makes me want to take NIU. I'm going to go Ohio. Fuck it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be original here. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I went too original with my West champ, so I gotta play a little bit safer for my conference champ.
And I am going to go with Toledo over Miami of Ohio in my title game. So that gives us a 3-way split here. Either Toledo, Ohio, or Eastern Michigan potentially gets their first conference title ever.
They have been building towards it for about 10 years now, and
I don't blame you is the thing. Yeah, no. I think that's a good pick.
No, there's actual reasons I'm taking this.
Right.
I just went with the fun one.
I know.
Emus. They beat Australians. They win MAC championships. It's that simple.
And watch Eastern just completely fall off a fucking cliff this year.
Which is
and-
also extremely
Dude, watch
possible.
all 6 of these
Ball-
teams just tank it. Like,
yeah. Watch it actually end up being Ball State versus Kent State in the
Akron.
championship. Yeah, or Akron. Yeah.
Now that I joked about that, it's Central Michigan versus Bowling Green for sure.
Western Kent. Like,
That is the other option. Yes, thank you, Tug.
welcome to the MAC. Anybody can win. No one knows what's going on.
I'm excited for it though.
Yeah, if you can't tell, we are all looking forward to Maction this upcoming season. It's always a great time. So stay tuned throughout the year because we'll be talking about some MAC games. I'm sure of it.
The most frustrating thing about the MAC is that there are games all week because then it's impossible to watch all of them, right? It really is,
Right.
unless this is your sole job.
Except,
And so, like, then I get frustrated.
I have, YouTube TV with has unlimited DVR space. I'm going to record every game this year, and I'm going to watch them probably at my desk at work. I didn't
Thank
say
you
that.
for
That's not a thing that I
reminding
said.
me of that because I need to get Sunday tickets.
It's
this
not.
year.
I need the bleep. I need the censored sound so we don't hear you say that anymore.
I'm going to watch it at beep. It's probably worse though.
Hey Tug, do you have some links? Do you have some links for us, Tug?
Yeah, I do. All right, guys. If you've been watching, they've been scrolling across, and this is the second time you're hearing them if you're watching us live, and I appreciate you for sticking around with us. For everyone else watching this after or listening, they are still scrolling. We will attach them in the link in the description below, but always visit us at patreon.com/BTFootball, twitter.com/BTFootball, facebook.com/BTFootball, instagram.com/BT_football, BDTfootball.com, mailbox at BDTfootball.com, youtube.com/@BigDudesInTheTrenches, twitch.tv/BigDudesInTheTrenches. Both of those are all one word. And our Discord link will be linked. I'm sorry, I cannot read that out loud.
You can, you just don't want to.
Yeah, you're 100% correct.
Did you know that a group of porcupines is called a prickle?
Yes.
I did.
It's crazy that they share that with a group of BMW drivers.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is all the time on the show we have today. Thank you for watching and or listening. And just remember, you can't win a game if you can't.